Welcome back, guys, to the Wezesha Vijana podcast, a podcast that is dedicated to empowering young people with resources and tips to navigate through current job employment market and the business market. We are at episode 4. Woo-hoo!
Yay! Hey.
I am your host, Irene Yurimu Mwangi, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Sharon Umuya.
and Karibu Sana. Remember, if you haven't watched our previous episodes, you can always go back. We are on YouTube and Spotify at Wezesha Vijana. And also, if you'd like to leave us a comment or a suggestion on anything, you can always reach us on our social media pages at Wezesha Vijana and CRS on X. So today we have a special guest.
Drum rolls.
Drum rolls.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually known this guest for about 8 to 9 or 10 years. I'm going to mention to you what our guest does. So we're joined by an amazing guest, and this is somebody who has been at the forefront of innovation at the youth employment space. This is somebody who has been a trailblazer, a game changer, and an innovator. Without further ado, let me welcome Deogracias Magero. Deogracias is a youth employment specialist at Kabi. He is an award-winning champion on meaningful youth employment or engagement. He's also a gender and social inclusion expert with over 11 years in the national, regional, and international development space, having worked on programs around employment creation, workforce development, labor market strengthening, entrepreneurship development. Let's give a round of applause to Deogracias. Karibu sana.
Karibu.
Karibu sana, Dio.
It feels interesting to listen you introducing me. I'm like, oh, that's great. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'm so happy to meet both of you. Thank you for having me.
Okay,
Karibu
great.
sana. So in today's episode, we are looking at how does the agricultural sector support young people in gaining employment opportunities? Maybe Sharon.
Yeah, I'd
do you
like
think-
to learn more about
Yeah.
how agriculture integrates with the youth.
Yeah.
Do our youth choose jobs that are in line with agriculture? Do you do agribusiness in UTVET? And to start us off, Dio, why agriculture and why should our youth choose career paths in line with agriculture?
Okay, that's great. First, I just want to mention that agriculture is the backbone of economies, as it's said by cliche, right?
Yeah.
But it's the reality, because ask yourself how many times, I don't want to ask about today, but how many times have you eaten something today? Well, by end of day, it could be 2 to 3 times or even more.
True.
Yeah, sometimes intentionally, sometimes to pass time. But bottom line is most of what we consume comes from our products or outputs of agriculture. And what that really means is the demand for safe, high quality food is not going go down anytime soon. Why so? Because guess what? They say by 2050, the global population will be about 9 to 10 billion.
Wow.
You know how many numbers there are today?
No.
No.
About 7 billion.
7 billion.
Kenyan population is around averagely maybe 50 million today. How many would we be in the next 10 years? Or maybe 25 years in 2050? I don't want to give a number, but I'm pretty sure heading towards 60 million or more. Each of those mouths need to be fed. The agricultural sector is a great opportunity that is, whose demand for food is not going anywhere. It's definitely an opportunity for us to look at and consider our young people looking at as a sustainable source of livelihoods.
I mean, for me, the agricultural sector is this two-faced kind of person. On one side, it has employed so many young people within the continent and also in Kenya, and not just young people, but more than just young people. And it is a very good source of employment given the statistics that you've shared. But on the other side, when I think about agriculture as a young person, mi nafikirianga tu ukulima. And ukulima, most young people wanakumbuka tu mikono chafu.
Exactly.
Ni ya watu wazee and all that. So how do we demystify this sector, especially for a young person who's listening and they want to know exactly what exactly about this sector can I gain as a young person in terms of earning?
That's a very good question, and I really like that you're bringing out the reality of how we all, especially the younger people, perceive agriculture. The most important thing I want to mention now, and I'm sure we'll talk about it going forward, is there are limitless opportunities for any person, including young people, to generate income along what would be called an agricultural value chain. Give me an example of any value chain you might think about.
Say
Cocoa, exactly. So when you're talking poultry, first in terms of challenging our young people and all our mindsets to move from agriculture to agribusiness, we are thinking about chicken as an opportunity for us to sell a given product. So it is either eggs or chicken for meat, mature chicken, or probably chicks, which will then be grown. So when you think about that, you're thinking about, one, the primary producer who is doing the dirty work that most of our young people are not interested in. That is the old person we think about. It's great. While that older person who has the resources to produce thousands of chicks or chicken or even eggs is producing, there are other opportunities along that value chain. One, this egg is gotten from somewhere. I don't want to get into the debate of which one came first.
The nitty-gritties.
The chicken and the egg. Yeah, but in this context, let's talk of the egg that needs to produce the chicks that eventually become either broilers or layers. This egg comes from a source. Wherever it is produced, by the time it reaches a farmer, there is an opportunity for transport there. Before it even reaches the potential farmer, there's an opportunity for marketing where, if Irene, you are the producer of the eggs, I can make money by marketing you without touching your egg. I can make money by jumping on a motorcycle or facilitating transport between that egg and the farmer, or even going as far as facilitating transaction, which is a little higher. I don't want to talk about, but a digital transaction for innovative young people to get you the money and get to the farmer. Once this egg gets to the farmer, since you are using poultry as a value chain, the farmer needs several requirements for the egg to eventually become a mature chicken for meat, for example. One is definitely incubation. A young person has an opportunity to actually teach the farmer how to incubate and make money along that value chain without entirely being the incubator. Do you see the opportunity? And we have a number of agronomists and specialists in these fields. There's an opportunity, I think, when you talk about opportunities for us to be trained in terms of agricultural courses, there's an opportunity for you to become a trainer in that space. Two, a young person can provide services to this farmer. If it is in the context of the chicken, what are the services, for example? Whether it's vaccination, right? Whether it is just a whole advice, continuous advice on how to grow, advice on what are the relevant conditions for which this livestock, specifically poultry in this context, are required to grow, etc., etc. They are not engaged in that production of the chicken, but they are using their knowledge to support. Once this chicken is mature, there are two options. This young person can either decide to be an aggregator, which means that they can find market. We call it aggregating demand for the products. If it is eggs, they can go around and find markets of thousands of eggs, whether it's you're going from a hotel to a hotel, from a school to where, and you're like, I've spoken to these institutions, there's 3,000 demand for eggs. But farmers are still struggling on where to supply these eggs. A young person is providing a solution. How? When they're aggregating demand, all they need to do is negotiate with the farmer and tell the farmer, I'll buy your egg at 18 shillings. And go to the hotel and say, I'll sell this egg at 20, 21, 23 shillings. They make the markup. Somebody, whether it is the young person or somebody else, supplies it. So in summary, without going into the end of the value chain, the opportunities are limitless, and I look forward to us talking more about it.
When you were having the conversation, Diego mentioned that, do you know, as a graphic designer, you can be employed in the agricultural sector?
Wow. And that's one thing I'd like to know more about. So, Dio, I feel like you've taken me for 3 units in one agribusiness class. That was a whole lecture. But I'd like to know, how can I professionalize my career in agribusiness? How can I get from being just a typical chicken farmer to getting to class and learning more about it? What are those courses that are out there that I can learn and I can be, employable at the end of it?
Okay, still using the example of poultry, right? As a chicken farmer. It is usually needs that will inform the knowledge you have to acquire. And when you're starting with 3 chicks and you lose them, you're like, okay, they're just 3. But when you have 100, 150, 300, you're not ready to lose because that's a significant investment. Part of not losing is ensuring the diseases are taken care of. There are no pests. Even the construction of a structure is an opportunity. So based on the value chain that you're thinking about, poultry, production of horticultural products, whatever it is, there is required knowledge around 1, the management of that produce or product. 2, when you take management, I'm thinking about how do I ensure that they are growing in the right way? How do I ensure that they're not attacked by diseases or pests? 2, we are talking about the conditions within which they grow. When we are talking about conditions within which they grow, we are talking about the structures. If it is land, there's a way land has to be prepared for tomatoes that has to be different from the maize, for instance, right? If it is goats versus chicken, definitely the conditions are a little different.
True.
Understanding that structure is an opportunity to learn. But then if you talk about, I don't want to use, maybe I can say Gen Z, as we call it now.
Gen Z.
And we are behind our laptops and our smartphones, and Instagram has to make us money. Then we are talking about opportunities for marketing, opportunities for providing even shorter snippets on a farmer who wants to learn something. If today on my Instagram page I'm talking about chicken production, then I'm saying what happens to ensure that my egg does not rot. How many days does an egg take to incubate? That is enough information to learn in a day, and it will take you less than a minute to explain to a farmer. Is that knowledge?
Definitely.
Would a farmer subscribe to that?
Definitely.
When you talk about graphic design, you're talking about marketing, right? There's something we call value addition, right? Which is basically not selling the product in its raw form, but adding value. If you're having groundnuts, as in my village in Uganda, sometimes they do this. You're creating GNut paste, right? And in creating GNut paste, it needs to be branded and needs to be sold. Somebody who is supplying the bottles for branding is making money along that value chain without producing the groundnuts. Whoever is branding that, let's say a sticker, for example, with the pricing, with the name of the brand of your business, who is a graphic designer in this case, is making money without touching that groundnut or even going to the farm. So it's just really looking at, and I think our responsibility is to enable our young people see the opportunities, and then we work together to enable them get the right skills to get there.
Okay. I think there are a lot of information that we have gotten to hear today, and we need to take a short break, because as we come back we'll discuss some of the challenges that young people face that doesn't align with what we are talking about, the opportunity. So stay tuned for our part 2. Welcome back to Wezesha Vijana podcast. And earlier on, we were discussing some of the opportunities that young people have within the various levels of the agricultural sector. And Dio is taking us through some of the very non-traditional jobs, like being a graphic designer and involved with agricultural skills. And for me, as I'm listening to this, one of the questions that I'm asking myself as I read, if I want to begin to enter or to seek employment into this space, where do I start from, and what are some of the most profitable areas or business markets that I can venture in that can be able to give me the income that I'm looking for?
Well, Irene, marketable as a word is usually very debatable. I keep telling everyone that. But then it goes back to demand. I will genuinely tell anyone who is trying to start a business out there that there is need for you to conduct any form of analysis in terms of market analysis to really know what do you want to sell and where is the market. I think that's obvious thing. Whoever starts a kiosk, whoever starts a small business, thinks about what does, who is my market and what do they want. So in this context, when you tell me as a potential business person, I would simply ask you, what is it you like to sell? And maybe to broaden up a little bit, in agriculture, we are looking at production, which could be production of livestock, crops, or even inputs in the agricultural sector. Maybe I could give an example. In production of crops, you're talking about, I want to produce vegetables, I want to produce bananas, I want to produce maize, for example. In production of livestock, we're thinking about goats, we're thinking about chicken, we're thinking about cows and every other livestock. But then in production of inputs, you're talking about what are those required inputs. Equipment, well, we don't produce equipment, we don't manufacture, unfortunately, at a smaller level. But then inputs could be fertilizer. Right now, people are very keen on safe food, so they're looking at organic fertilizer. Inputs could be seeds or seedlings. Many young people are growing seedlings, grafting, and selling them to the primary producers of these fruits. So, first question for you to ask is, what would I like to sell? Where is the opportunity? Once you've done that, then you're asking yourself, what do I need? Right? What you need could be land, if it is crop. What you need could be knowledge, based on what you want to produce. What you need could be, I have the knowledge, I have everything, I need the input to kickstart. Is it an egg or is it a chick? Based on whether you want to sell, poultry business. Once you understand that, it's very important for you to know that agriculture is diverse, and most of the time agriculture succeeds on partnerships. It's a very unique sector for me. You don't wake up, start your own business and succeed by yourself. In agriculture, for as long as you're growing living things, you will need input around management of your living things, whether it's crops or livestock. So it's a question of also understanding what could be challenges around diseases, pests, and you don't need to understand that because the extension service providers who do that job.
Extension service providers really have these people squeezed.
So you ask me that. That's a very good question. And it takes me back to what are the broad opportunities for young people in agriculture? There was a question you're talking about challenges. I hope we'll talk about it. But generally, young people are struggling with finding the critical resources to set up their own production businesses. And that being said, either we focus on crying on the challenges and lack of resources, or we look at other opportunities within the value chain where these young people will make money without needing to produce, at least in the short term. What am I saying? That while production is a great opportunity that everyone thinks about, there is an opportunity around service provision. What do I mean by service provision? That a young person who does not have land, who does not have money, can be trained on how to diagnose pests, diseases, can be trained on how to provide spray service, can be trained on how to vaccinate, and they provide services to those producers, feeding the gap of extension service providers. Because let me tell you the truth, in some counties in Kenya, there is probably one extension service provider who is government employed to about 3,000 farmers. Even if they visit 10 farmers per day, they are not making all of them in a year. That's an opportunity.
So many challenges in the agriculture sector, Dio. And I'd like to give you a scenario. So think about this. We have Brian. Brian is 32 years old. He owns a 5-acre piece of land where he grows cabbage. So when he goes to the market to sell one piece of cabbage, guess how much he sells it for? 5 shillings. 5 shillings. So if you compare the inputs he bought and the labor work involved, this is very little return. So he once tried to apply for a loan from a local bank to lease some money, but they denied him access. I also know of another group in Kisumu. They call themselves the Baraka Youth Group. So this is a group that does fish farming in the lake shores of Lake Victoria. And they're almost giving up on their business as they have no money to buy coolers to keep their fish fresh. And once they harvest them, they have nowhere to take them. So when they tried getting a credit facility at the bank where they opened a joint account, the situation became very difficult for them as they were asked to produce collateral. So these stories are replicated all across Kenya, where youths are struggling to remain in the agricultural sector. So how can young people like Brian and the Baraka Youth Group receive the support that they need to thrive in agribusiness, Dio?
Thank you. I can relate to the reality of the challenges that every young person is facing, especially those trying to start businesses, and most importantly, the agribusiness. Why? Because agribusiness produce is mostly having a very short shelf life. If it's fish, you're not spending 2 nights with fish when it's fresh. It's spoiled. If it's vegetables like cabbage, it needs to go as soon as it's produced, to the market. So I can relate to that ultimately. I would, using those 2 examples and thinking broadly of the bigger picture, mention this, that it is better something you started, attempted and failed and learned, than not starting at all.
True.
Practically, in terms of access to financial resources, the challenge is us going to what I call mainstream financial institutions. And today I'll talk to young people and tell them, start where you are. Either you can join a SACCO and put a little money there, than putting in a bank that will need collateral. A SACCO will not need collateral. If you put even 50,000 in a SACCO and you want a loan, they'll give you up to a maximum of that 50,000 without any guarantors, because they believe it's your money. Anything beyond that, because SACCOs can offer 3 to 4%, they'll need guarantors, some of whom will be your group members. Start as simple as the social setup. We have village-based social, we call them village loaning, and I don't want to use that big one, chamas. Establish your own chama if you're a group of 15, 16 people, even 4 people, and start saving and putting in if it's a SACCO or a chama. Don't do the simple merry-go-round of give me 2,000 I eat next month. You say, no, save for something, okay? Because you have to start small, unfortunately, before you get to a level where a financial institution trusts you. There are other social elements that need to be considered, of course, if you're looking at social-based financing options, and that has to be trust, that has to be vision. I don't want to talk bad about other financial institutions, but I think once you have built up enough portfolio, then they can trust you. I know that there are some financial institutions that may not require collateral, but they will need to see evidence of your business, and they will need to see evidence of transactions to say your credit worth. So it's important that every day we are talking about this. It is our responsibility. I say this every time. I really know that to enable the young people see who they can save with, who can support them, right? Rather than just going to a mainstream bank, and even the type of account you save in may not be a specific product to support your business. So it is one, looking at the social elements, the social opportunities for saving, such as SACCOs, chamas that do like putting together loaning, but also microfinance institutions and also financial institutions have products specific to this kind of small business.
And for me, for the young person who is listening in today, as we conclude, what are some of the key things that they need to do or to acquire for them to succeed in the agricultural space?
Great, that's a very good question. One, it's just at least define what you want. Have a vision, and it's okay for you to make it as big as it can be. It's okay for you to make it as tiny as it can be. 2, it's very important for you to ask yourself, am I authentic, right? In terms of what I need to do, and seek the knowledge. Learning is an opportunity that you don't want to miss out to understand what kind of sector you want to get in. For agriculture, to my understanding, I know that young people are seeking maybe 3 or 4 things. Business that requires very little land. Business that requires less resources, because young people are not privileged to have all the money in the world. A business that requires shorter maturation period, and it's our responsibility who are supporting young people to also enable them see that. But most importantly, a produce that is easy to sell or can easily be value added. So do not say I don't want to start because I'm not ready. Start with what you have. You can do as simple as a vertical garden to the corner of if it's a little house of it's in urban small garden you can find, rather than saying I will wait until I buy a plot. But also start small and be financially literate. One of the things I've seen messing us around as young people is when we get little money and we can't manage it, we don't grow. And if you can't manage it, so I think critically for me is to know why you're starting something, so that when you're getting that little profit and think about the why, you succeed in growth. The last thing I would say, which is really like just my personal advice, is growth mindset is something you need to embrace. When I say growth mindset, I mean embrace failure and learning and challenges as part of the journey. Yeah.
Wow, that was so amazing, Dio. That was a whole lecture, but it was very, very informative. And I feel like one thing I picked out from it was the growth mindset. And sometimes sisi my youth tunajiangushanga kabisa. We want things very fast. You want to that chicken to lay that egg ifike kwa soko upate pesa. But no, that's not how it goes in today's world. You have to start small. You have to walk the journey. And after that, I'm sure that you'll be able to reap the fruits. So Dio, do you have any final advice for our youth in the agriculture sector?
Allow me to just say two things. Mine might be a little lengthy, but one is the opportunities in agriculture are limitless. I keep saying that. Either you are producing. If you're not producing, you can provide services to producers, get the knowledge to learn, or you can actually set up other businesses along the value chains, which can be transport, which can be logistics, which can be marketing, which can be aggregation, bringing these products together and trying to find someone to buy them. Or you can even be at the back of your computer as a content creator, using your content to market, using your knowledge in design and other things to actually market and even brand these businesses. So I would challenge the young persons to not just look at agriculture as the soil. The soil is definitely the most critical in terms of starting the journey, but it's not the only opportunity. And then last but not least, I think Sharon, you've said it already. Be patient, but be authentic. Because if you are authentic, you grow genuinely, rather than wanting to, be a billionaire tomorrow. You see that story where we say, hey, nikiangukia to 10 million take it one step at a time. And please find a mentor if you can. I think we are here, happy to do. That's the kind of work we do. And most importantly also, lastly, please build your social capital. Earlier on I said agriculture is not successful by one person waking up. There has to be a consumer, there has to be somebody to link you. When I say social capital, who are your supporters? Where is the market? Who will link you to the market? Don't die alone in a dark room.
I think for me that has very much resonated with what I have strongly believed, that as young people we need to pay attention to, especially the aspect around the vision as to what exactly do you want. Because sisi kama vijana, we are very happy when we make that kawan kadil and then we get this huge lump sum amount of money, and then suddenly umepotea hiyo biashara, you have already bought your Lexus, you've already bought your house. Sasa tena hauko tena hapo. But it's all about you looking at the long-term vision as to why and where are you going as a young person who wants to grow within the agricultural space. What is your vision? Where do you want to go? What is your goal? And that is what we are talking about in today's episode of Wezesha Vijana program. Thank you so much, Dio, for joining us. Thank you so much for your insights. We have learned quite a lot. And for the viewers who are watching, do remember that you can drop your comments and your questions to Dio through our social media pages at Wezesha Vijana on X, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. And also reach out to us at CRS, that is on X, and also you can reach us at Wezesha Vijana on LinkedIn. So Sharon.
Wow, that was such an amazing session for today. And that's it for today's Wezesha Vijana podcast. We hope you found this session to be very informative and inspiring. And stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, take care.
Bye.